Some anniversaries end with flowers. Some end with memories. Ours ended with one of us disappearing forever. People say lighthouses are built to guide lost ships home. They're wrong. Some lighthouses aren't calling ships. They're calling people. And once they choose you, the ocean never gives you back. This happened to Kellan and Brielle Ashford during their first wedding anniversary. They rented a lonely cabin on a forgotten island because they wanted 3 quiet days away from the world. They had no idea the lighthouse watching over the island wasn't protecting anyone. It was waiting for its next 2 keepers. The island didn't even have a real name on the rental website. It was simply marked as Private Anniversary Retreat. That should have been the first warning. The ferry ride took almost 2 hours through thick gray fog. The water stayed strangely calm, almost too calm, as if the ocean itself wasn't breathing. The old ferryman barely spoke. As the island finally appeared through the mist, Brielle smiled. This place is gorgeous. It really was. Steep black cliffs surrounded the island, and at the highest point stood an enormous stone lighthouse overlooking everything below. It looked ancient. Not broken, not abandoned, just awake. When the ferry reached the dock, the ferrymen unloaded their bags without saying a word. As Kellan thanked him, the old man finally looked toward the lighthouse. If the light comes on after midnight, he paused. Don't look at it too long. Before either of them could ask what he meant, the ferry engine roared to life and disappeared back into the fog. Kellan laughed. Guy watches way too many horror movies. Brielle forced a smile, but something about the island already felt wrong. There weren't any birds, no insects, no sound except distant waves crashing against the cliffs. It felt less like nature, and more like a place pretending to be alive. Their cabin sat only a short walk from the lighthouse. Inside, everything looked spotless. Fresh towels, a warm fireplace, 2 coffee mugs resting on the kitchen table. But there was something odd. The fireplace contained ashes that were still warm. Kellan frowned. That's weird. Maybe the cleaning crew just left. But there wasn't a single vehicle anywhere on the island. No footprints. No signs anyone had been there recently. Still, they ignored it. The afternoon passed peacefully. They explored the shoreline, took anniversary photos, laughed together, and watched the sunset paint the ocean deep orange. For a while, it felt perfect. That night, they opened a bottle of wine and sat beside the cabin window watching darkness swallow the sea. Then, exactly at midnight, the lighthouse turned on. Its massive beams slowly rotated across the water. Each time the light swept over the cabin, every light inside flickered. Once, twice, again. Like the lighthouse wasn't simply shining, it was checking something. Kellan joked that the wiring must be ancient, but neither of them noticed something terrifying. The lighthouse wasn't rotating at a steady speed. Every time its beam reached their cabin, it slowed down, almost as if it were staring. Around 3 in the morning, Brielle woke to a strange humming. It sounded like dozens of people whispering underwater. She walked to the bedroom window. The lighthouse beam had stopped moving. It pointed directly into their room. She couldn't see the tower anymore, only the blinding white light. Then, dark figures slowly began appearing inside the beam. At first, there were only a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Human-shaped shadows standing perfectly still inside the light, watching her. She blinked. They vanished. She woke Kellan immediately. By the time he reached the window, the beam was rotating normally again. You probably had a nightmare. She wanted to believe him. The next morning, they decided to hike up to the lighthouse. If we're going to stay here, Kellan said, we might as well check it out. The trail climbed through dead grass and jagged rocks until they reached the enormous wooden door. It was already open. Inside waited an endless spiral staircase. No electricity, no modern equipment, no signs anyone maintained the place. Only cold stone walls covered with faded photographs. Brielle stopped at the first frame. A smiling couple stood beside the lighthouse. Vacation clothes, happy faces. But their eyes looked terrified. like they were staring at something standing behind whoever took the picture. The next photo showed another couple. Different decade, same expression. The next, another couple. Another year. Another terrified smile. Every photograph had been taken exactly 1 year apart, always on the same date, their anniversary. Near the top of the staircase, they found one final frame. It was empty. Below it was a tarnished brass plaque, "Keepers to be chosen." A loud grinding noise echoed above them. The entire lighthouse shook. The light suddenly switched on, but there wasn't any electricity. A pale blue beam poured down through the center of the tower. The whispers returned, only now they were louder. Hundreds of voices speaking together. We waited. "You came back. Don't leave again." The walls trembled. One by one, the old photographs began changing. Every smiling couple slowly faded away until only empty landscapes remained, as if none of those people had ever existed. Brielle grabbed Kellan's hand. "We're leaving." They ran downstairs, except the entrance was gone. The doorway had become a solid stone wall. No cracks, no handle, nothing. Only more stairs. They kept running downward. 5 minutes, 10, 20. The staircase never ended. Finally, Kellan stopped. "This isn't possible." The moment he said those words, they stepped outside, back at the lighthouse entrance, exactly where they had started. It felt as if reality itself had folded in half. The beam swept across them again. Kellan suddenly froze. His shadow didn't. His shadow remained standing while he moved. Then it slowly turned toward the lighthouse. It smiled. Kellan didn't. The shadow smiled. It peeled itself off the ground like thick black smoke and walked into the blue light. Kellan collapsed. His heartbeat remained steady. His breathing never changed. But when he opened his eyes, they looked completely empty. "Brielle?" His voice sounded wrong, like hundreds of people were speaking through him. "It showed me." She backed away. "What showed you?" "The place beneath the light." His smile widened. "It needs us." He began walking toward the lighthouse, not because he wanted to, because something invisible was pulling him. Brielle grabbed his arm with both hands. His skin felt freezing cold. "Kellan, fight it." He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "I am." Those were the last normal words he ever spoke. The blue beam swallowed him. For one terrifying second, Brielle saw inside the light. Thousands of silent people stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the ocean. Every face pale, every mouth moving, every pair of eyes staring directly at her. Then they all whispered together. "One remains." The light exploded. Brielle covered her face. When she opened her eyes, Kellan was gone. No footprints, no scream, no blood. Only his wedding ring resting on the stone floor. The next morning, the ferry returned. The ferryman looked at Brielle standing alone. He wasn't surprised. "Only one?" She couldn't answer. He simply lowered his head. "It always keeps one." Back on the mainland, everything became worse. Nobody believed her. According to every official record, Kellan Voss had never existed. No birth certificate, no driver's license, no marriage license, no bank account, nothing. Even the anniversary pictures on her phone had changed. Every photo now showed Brielle smiling alone, like she had always traveled by herself. Weeks turned into months. She tried therapy. She moved to another town. She threw away every souvenir from the island. None of it mattered. Every night at exactly midnight, her bedroom filled with the faint smell of seawater. Sometimes she woke to find wet footprints leading from the window to her bed. Sometimes she heard distant waves, even though the nearest coastline was hundreds of miles away. Then one stormy evening, every light in her apartment suddenly flickered. Once, twice, again, exactly like they had inside the cabin. Outside her window, there was no ocean, no cliffs, no island, Yet a pale blue beam slowly swept across the clouds. It stopped directly over her apartment. The whispers returned, louder than ever. One keeper remains. The walls began dripping seawater. The mirrors slowly fogged over. Then words appeared across every surface in the room. Not written, carved from the inside. Come finish the watch. The power died instantly. The apartment fell into complete darkness. For several long seconds, there was absolute silence. Then somewhere inside the darkness, far closer than the lighthouse had ever been, the slow turning sound of an enormous lighthouse lens echoed through the room. And just before the blue light reached her, Brielle realized something horrifying. The lighthouse had never been standing on that island. The island had been standing inside the lighthouse.